Welcome to Bahrain, where qualifying is about to get underway for the GT4 International Cup. David Addison and John Watson trackside, under the floodlights, in the darkness. It's a very different Bahrain circuit now on which the drivers will compete compared to what they've had for the two free practice sessions earlier on in the day. Two qualifying races and a main race make up the weekend, and the two qualifying sessions, usual format, one driver does one, starts that race, second driver will do the other. Green lights are on at the end of the pit lane, green flag is being shown, Alain Adon releases the cars, ready to get things underway, with James Holder being out first in his Aston Martin. Bahrain may not instantly be the most spectacular of places, but you come to the circuit, the light goes down, the floodlights come on, and it really does take on a whole new magic.
Well, I mean, I was going to say, it just has become magical. It's like a fairy tale. And, I mean, we're going to see a few GT4 cars which may not actually carry that kind of tag. But what is interesting, as we see the GT4 cars make their way out onto this 3.3 mile, 5.4 kilometre circuit, the car that has been the dominant car in the practice sessions we've enjoyed so far is one that I'm not familiar with, other than I've seen it in magazines. And that's the brand new Alpine A110 GT4. Sweet, sweet little car.
Absolutely. It's a very attractive little car, and it's a modern classic, isn't it? It's got the archetypal lines of the A110 of period, but it's in a modern shape. It is a quick car. It had a win at Spa, there it is, in the European Championship earlier on in the year, and it will be, there are two of them, competitive here as well. One or two just electing to stay in the pit lane for a little bit longer before they are heading out onto the circuit. 41 there, Michel Blanchemin and Stephen Palette with the Audi, and 51, the Primus Racing Ginetta, the G55. Peter Larson doing the driving duties in this first part of qualifying.
And immediately, if you've been watching our previous broadcast of the qualification for the GT Nations Cup, is that these cars, they look different, and they are different. And principally, they don't have the sophisticated aero, and that GT4 McLaren is pretty much out of the box from your local McLaren dealer.
And this is one of the reasons why GT4 has been in recent years such a hit, because you've got manufacturers building cars rather than tuners trying to take a car and make it into a racer. They are turnkey, they're customer friendly, they're user friendly, they're reliable, they're pretty rugged, and we've had some monster entries in the European Championship. That's Finlay Hutchison, who along with Ricardo van der Ende has had a couple of wins this season, but this weekend he shares with Matt Nicol-Jones in the Academy Motorsport McLaren, and both quick drivers. And
don't forget the legend who's running that team, Dave Price. No, he's not. It's not Dave Price. He's running Bullet Racing.
Bullet Racing.
Another legend, Andy Miller, the man that made sure that Paul Stewart Racing and Stewart Grand Prix had any level of success, which they did, of course.
Mrs. Miller did mention to me in the week it's the first time in his long career that Andy Miller
closed racing series, but he's here in Bahrain with a GT4 car, and very, very happy to do so.
We've had him in the British Touring Car Championship paddock, for example, this
year.
Okay. Not that you would stoop to that, John, as you well know from your time in it. But it's an intriguing entry in terms of car, in terms of driver. There's some very attractive Porsche Caymans. There's one example, threading its way through turns 5, 6, 7, 222, the Porsche Zentrum Oberzürcher by TFT Racing, car Jan Kasperlik sharing with Niki Leutwiler. Now there's one car that's missing from the session. It's the BMW Team France by Ecris Motorsport car, Julien Piguet, Ricardo van der Ende. Two very, very quick drivers, but the Ecris M4 as it's homologated rather than a BMW, even though it's entered by BMW Team France. Confused you will be. That's got a broken engine, so they're going to replace that, and it will start both races from the back of the grid.
With a penalty.
Yes.
If starting at the back of the grid isn't a sufficient penalty.
So they need an early safety car to bring them into the mix.
Well, that is the penalty, of course, starting at the back of the grid.
There's 222, that's the Porsche Cayman. Jan Kasperlik at the wheel of it, and we'll start to see lap times coming through. And based cars, which probably 25 years ago, if not more, was what production sports car racing would have been.
In fairness, if you go back to maybe 8 or 10 years ago, at the introduction of GT3 racing, not a million miles different from where we are in GT4. But GT3 is spawned and evolved and developed into being not quite a silhouette formula, but very sophisticated cars, even though they are in most cases turnkey cars, whereas the GT4 car is very much like, well, your Porsche Cayman, David. You could almost just put a set of wheels and sticks on it, and there's not a lot more aero on that than there is on the car coming out of the showroom.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, there are now obviously GT4 models within the brand, but yeah, there's
a bit lighter,
apart from a rear wing, and one or two modifications.
Take some of the comforts out, put a bit more carbon into it, a racing seat, proper seat harness, a roll cage, and Bob's your uncle.
Away you go. Jan Kasperlik then, briefly the quickest, but the Alpine of David Touchepont is now the fastest.
It's been overtaken by 3Y technology.
Gilles Vannelet,
yeah,
the vastly experienced Gilles Vannelet, goes to the top. James Holder you're looking at in the Aston Martin, the man behind the Super Dry clothing brand, and sharing with Matt George. So got a good co-driver. There behind is the 11 McLaren, Luke Brahms, sharing with wife Lisette, and it is Luke that will do Q1 in the Las Moras racing car.
Little Alpine, is that the little Alpine? Is that the number? That's the number 11.
It's the McLaren.
That's why I saw him. Well, Alpine somewhere, that's the number 11 McLaren.
It's kind of Alpine colours, really.
They're very similar indeed, just to that head-on view.
But Luke Brahms, been around the block a fair few times, largely in touring car and GT and touring car related categories in the Benelux region. And in 2017, North European GT4 champion. 57 years of age. Fabien Michel for the Santalot Junior team is now the fastest. 2 minutes 12. These cars, of course, slower than their GT3 cousins. Fabien Michel sharing with Greg Gilbert in the Audi.
Yeah, the difference in lap time between the GT3 and the GT4, if you take the pole position, is about 13 or so seconds, but on average, let's say 12 seconds. And that fundamentally is through aero, through different tyre dimension, and to some degree the level of tune, the balance of performance that the GT3 cars run to. But this is, in essence, GT racing in its more pure form, because you could go to your Mercedes-Benz or your Aston Martin or whatever dealer and buy a car which is pretty much as you're seeing them here on track.
So there, James Holder being reeled in on road by Luke Brahms, heading up towards the timing line. Audi's 1, 2, 3 at the moment, because you've got 4th, 5th, Jan Kasperlik's Porsche, and Anton Hodson with his Maserati comes 6th. And there is another of the Alpines, number 26, that is David Touchepont.
I think there's just, I mean, it's a slightly unusual shape, principally because that was the shape of the original A110 Alpine, which turned out to be one of the mega rally car stars in the 70s, even I think maybe as far back as the late 60s. And it's been revived in a thoroughly modern construction and design. But it's got all the values and features in that it's got lightweight.
GT3, we do a GT4. Track limit abuse as James Holder goes wide. Gilles Vannelet, who was the fastest, has had his lap time cancelled for track limit abuse. So the race director for this, Alain Adon, is being less lenient perhaps than the FIA race director for the GT Nations Cup. Just shedding bits of bodywork or a sticker.
It looks a bit of tape or something. It's strange. Was it on the circuit or was it something that came from the car? Let's look and see. Just catching the bit of debris coming from the rear of that BMW.
Darren Jorgensen, the American driver at the helm of that car. There's an Alpine slowest, Pierre Sancinena. That should be a lot quicker than that as the session wears on. There's the sister car, number 26, of David Touchepont. What's he up to? Because he brakes going up towards turn 12, though, which you don't really need to do. I think he's trying to get Audi from the Phoenix team. Is now the fastest, 2 minutes 11.555 from Fabien Michel's Santalot Junior team, Audi R8. And again, when we pick up an Audi on track, you'll see how much more, there is one, the Phoenix car behind, how much more standard they look. But what's going on, there's an awful lot of slow bicycle racing here.
Yeah, there's a McLaren just coming out of turn 13 rather slowly, and you can see it running on the left of the track. Whether he's looking for track position or he just wants to get out of the way. If he wants to get out of the way, maybe by staying on the right would have been the preferred option. But he may be preparing to have another go as we see the Audi.
There's a punctured tyre on the Alpine. That's
first we've seen all weekend.
Yeah, that's going to be 36, isn't it? The car of 26 of David Touchebot, I would propose, or is it 30? Puncture somewhere. And he's trying to limp back, but that perhaps shows you what happens if you abuse the curbs too vigorously.
Well, we don't know what caused it. I mean, there is stuff on the racetrack, rubbish on the racetrack, but frequently it is track abuse, track limit abuse, that you cut a tyre down, especially if you drop a wheel off at the end of a curb where there is a slightly sharper edge to a curb than there would be if you run it and come off the curb before you get to the end.
What a smart red Cayman, hey? So there, out of turn one, is the Ethan Simeone, Andrew Danilov car, the two Canadians. If you go back quite a few years, you might remember Andrew from the early days of the Blockpan Endurance Series when he went back to Canada. Had quite a large accident at the Nürburgring from memory. Went back to Canada and has been doing domestic races. There down the pit road limps Sonsinena to get the tyre sorted out.
So what will that do to that set of wheels and tyres when you get a replacement tyre? Depends on what the cause. Certainly the rear bodywork also has been dislodged. Whether that's the consequence of the tyre or whether that was an incident again, with only just 8.5 minutes of the session to go, and they're going to push it back into the garage and not really succeeding. Is it stuck in gear?
Brake, but he doesn't want to roll, does it? You might be right about it being in gear.
I don't know what it is. Very strange.
Bits of tyre, bits of bodywork.
It's in a guard. It's the inner rear guard. That might have come from the Alpine.
That's down at turn 10. Right, new tyre goes on. And these are only 20-minute sessions. We've got 8 minutes to go, so Pierson Sinena has lost a huge chunk of time.
And of course, no central locking on these, or certainly not on the Alpine. They've got 4 or 5 lug nuts that have all got to be done up one after the other. So compared to what you do with a centre, not a lot slower. You've got to put the nuts in the gun. I mean, some teams, if they were really with the program, would have those lug nuts.
So Pierson Sinena sits there, awaiting his turn to go back out. 27-year-old who came from Formula Renault, but more recently has been a regular in the French GT Championship, 6th, in fact, in the GT France Championship this year, which runs to GT4 regulations. Double winner, so he's got the pedigree.
So is that just a little tap on that rear bodywork? I would get a bit of tape and I wouldn't even think about it. I'd make sure that it is secure, because if it's been dislodged, it's for a reason, and that reason might be for something a bit more than just a quick smack, and hope that it's going to hold.
Yeah, because all of this is taking time that they haven't got. 6 minutes to go.
6.5 minutes almost.
Milan Doccia for the Phoenix team is quickest. He's in the pit lane. There, 42 is Fabien Michel, second fastest. He's bailed for the moment. Will he go back out again? The Santilot team was at Spa 24 Hours a couple of years ago. We'll consider this.
Well, it's interesting that Audi have got a lockout presently in GT4 qualifying.
Because it's the WRT Audi that's got pole for both sessions out of GT3 Nations Cup. There's the McLaren then. So Matt Nicol-Jones' squad, for so many years associated with Ginettas and now Aston Martins, the Academy Motorsport squad, taking on the McLaren. And Finlay Hutchison, rapid driver, double winner in Europe this year. And Matt Nicol-Jones, who perhaps we've not really seen the best of because he hasn't had the quickest of co-drivers this season, is a very, very handy driver indeed. So you put the two of them together, could be winners.
Yes, and that is a good run by the McLaren.
Fourth fastest, yeah.
Got a fine 0.2 of a second to make any further improvement again, but only be going from 4th to 3rd, so it would be nice to start on the cleaner part of the track. One of the Maseratis, we don't see those, these are the Gran Turismo MC GT4.
Makes a great noise, that car.
Has that one got, there was an article on Maseratis, one of my magazines I brought out, and they've got a different, they've got a ZF gearbox or another style of gearbox which is in the earlier one, and one's meant to be better than the other, but one's heavier than the other on the go, so I assume it's a sequential gear change on the Maserati, but that 4.7 litre Ferrari sourced, or the Fiat Empire sourced V8 sounds glorious, and
doesn't. A company that traces its roots back well over 5 decades now. Lawrence Tomlinson at the helm of the company, which, thanks to its racing exploits, really kick-started by Martin Pfaff, the previous owner. But Lawrence Tomlinson has carried on. Very, very successful constructor of GT cars, Ford GT4 and its multitudinous one-make championships. Not had a great deal of luck building LMP1 cars, or at least that project is still developing.
But the beauty of these little Ginettas is they're straightforward, uncomplicated.
Yeah.
And they're light, they're nimble. They've got a V6 power unit in them, so they've got good power to weight ratio. Sweet little car.
And again, thanks to HHC Motorsport, the British team, very successful in the main European Championship this year. Larson gets all sideways. Touch of Larson there, he gets away with it, but that was down at turn 10. 9th fastest in the Primus Racing Ginetta.
Yeah, I mean, it's what I would call an enthusiast or a driver's car. May not be the first choice to take the babe out for a blue-eyed dinner at the weekend
These days in Garforth. This is Peter Larson getting it wrong.
Again, everybody's suffering from the same thing. If you're aggressive on the wheel, you would miss the apex anyway. But if you're aggressive on the wheel, you will induce an oversteer, and that is what everybody's having to be mindful of. There's 36 back out after that little moment with a right rear tyre being, whether it was punctured or whether it was deflated, we don't know. The bodywork was also getting a bit of attention, so got, what, 3 minutes and a little more to get this lap complete.
He's got one flying lap, hasn't he,
yeah,
really? This is the outlap. So Pierre Sancinena could be the real hero of the session if he can haul that car up to the front or near the front of the grid. Down at turn 10.
Look at drive it anywhere on the racetrack. Gets the car well over the curb on the inside. First driver I've been seen who's been able to do that.
And as a road car, this gets rave reviews. And it's been a very handy race car as well. I suspect it's its way now up through turn 11. Speed building. And Pierre Sancinena needs to do a flying lap because he has not yet been able to achieve save. Comes out of turn 13 at the top of the lap. 2:11.5 is the best lap from Milan Doccia. These are relative recent to circuit racing, and he began in car racing in 2015, but has done a lot of racing since.
Is this his out lap or is this his flying lap? We're not saying any sector times.
This is the out lap, isn't it?
Well, we're not seeing it a sector time in sector 1, so I'm assuming it's an out lap. So let's wait and see when it comes across start finish line if it is actually a lap that timing and scoring hasn't caught up with, or whether it is actually when he's gone sector 3. Personal best in sector 3, but that's understandable. He's not really done 6 Alpine up onto somewhere, well, let's say nearer to where we had anticipated being than where it's ended up so far.
The last lap was a 7-minute, which includes the pit stop, so it was the out lap. And so now Pierre Sancinena is on it. So now we need to start looking at sectors. And actually, he's got the road to himself because
4 other cars on the track.
Exactly, the place is deserted. And so he comes now out of turn 4. Wriggles his way to the end of the first sector now.
Just watch the way the Alpine tracks. I mean, he could place that car with confidence pretty much everywhere he wants, and the car responds.
But his sector time is slow. It's not a good sector time.
It's not.
So he's going to have to dig deep. Sectors 2 and 3 should be better because it was within sector 2 that he had his puncture. So ergo, this will be better. But is it good enough to get him up towards mid-grid?
Well, you can see the glow, but again, he's able to use much more of the racetrack and place the Alpine much more accurately in out-and-out performance of some of the competition, but it's backed out of it.
Yes, I think you're right, he has. So is that suggesting that something is not right with the car caused by the puncture, the damage? Did he vibrate? Something
unexpected
damage?
Certainly.
Yeah.
So he just simply backed out of it, coming from 10, turn up to 11.
Tell you what, though, if you put him 20th on the grid, you put the Van der Ende and Piguet BMW 21st on the grid, we've got 2 real gun cars there that are going to be well worth watching in that first race storming through.
There is 37, which is all the way down in 11th, 3Y Technology. Philippe Cadore.
Yeah, who's not done very much racing, but the very wealthy heir to the Hong Kong business empire, real petrol head. These days has a Hong Kong license, who's found more racing opportunities in Asia than he did in the UK. The money ran out, so Dan Wells.
I mean, once you get over that concept, you can go out there, make a great career for yourself, have a lovely lifestyle, maybe on top of it, fulfilling the dream.
Yeah, indeed. And Dan has done that in single-seaters and sports cars and touring cars. And the flag is out then. So Q1 for the GT4 International Cup here at the Bapco Bahrain GT Festival is at an end. And there's now a 10-minute break. So actually, if you've already pitted, you're in a better place because it gives your team longer to cycle the car through. Good job. Went out, only did 4 laps, quickest by 0.6 of a second, saved everything. Saved the car, saved the rubber.
Yeah, I mean, clearly you get a clear lap, which does help. Didn't either abuse or need to do things to compensate for certain aspects of the circuit. And I mean, to be 0.6 of a second ahead of another Audi, and a further 0.9 of a second ahead of the third place Audi. So something very special indeed went on with Milan Donce in that Phoenix Racing sister car, say 9/10 back on the, no, sister car 1.6 seconds back on Milan Donce's time. That's mega, that's massive.
It is. Then, of course, you factor in the second driver, because in some cases you might have a slower co-driver than somebody behind you, and it all balances out. But for now, fastest is Milan Donce for Phoenix Racing. Second for Santeloc, Fabien Michel. Gap between them 0.667 of a second. Third fastest, Gassara Dest for Phoenix. Fourth, Finlay Hutchison. So I think that's pretty good for the Academy Motorsport McLaren. Put Matt Nicol-Jones in the car. It's going to be well up there as Michel Blanchemin gets out of his Audi that is 7th fastest behind Jan Kasperlik's Porsche 5th. And then Ethan Simeone's Porsche 6th. 7th is Blanchemin. 8th, Jérôme Poliquin. Yes, him. Having his one-off race of the year. 9th fastest, Peter Larson, despite his slide. And 10th is the Razzoon More Than Racing Porsche of Constantin Schürrle. Now, Stephen Patrick in the Dave Price run Bullet Racing Mercedes 16, so that's the one that Andy Merritt will take over.
And he's going to hop into that one.
Yeah.
He was easing the balls of his feet this weekend, looking all happy as usual.
Steve Palette, who's done some Porsche racing, psyching himself up, look, in the Audi, ready to go, of the Santeloc Junior team. Another experienced driver, French GT, Carrera Cup, NASCAR Euro Series, you name it. V2V endurance racing as well. So Stephen Palette ready to go. It will be 20 minutes again, of course. This, we will be getting underway in 6.5 minutes' time. And 33, oh dear, Stephen Patrick is having his pit lane speed investigated. And
if Price, he's been there so many times. He knows how to handle stewards.
Wouldn't he like to be a fly on the wall when he
gets there? He'll have them be just like a knife through hot knife through butter.
That's it.
No problem for Dave Price.
A remarkable enthusiast. I mean, he doesn't have to keep coming to do this, but he just loves racing, doesn't he?
The reason you work, Dave is at a pensionable age. The thing you'd never ever do if you've had a life in a profession like motorsport, why do you want to retire?
Yeah.
Retirement's the worst thing you can do. If somebody's prepared to give you a role or give an opportunity, pay to be involved, take it with your both hands. Wonderful life.
At the SRO Awards last year, he bumped into Lawrence Pierce, who'd run the Lister team for so many years. And it was just like they were back in the paddock, because they were arguing about whose cars were quicker and lighter and who was looking at the grey area of the regulations, even though, you know, this was sort of 20 years on since they last came across each other in a paddock. But the racing instinct was still there.
Interpretation.
Indeed.
That's what it's all about, interpretation.
Now, as the floodlights are on and the natural light is just about gone here in Bahrain, we have got another qualifying session for GT4. We've got Historics qualifying, and then the first race later on in the evening of the FIA GT3 Nations Cup. And if you want to get ahead, get ahead. Teams prepare themselves for Q2. And this GT4 International Cup. Another event. We've had the Sprint Cup in addition to the European, Central European and French GT4 Championships, plus of course a very successful GT4 class in British GT. Category is booming right now. Franz Verschoor overseeing the McLaren there, and the Number 250, BMW of the Americans, Darren Jorgensen and Brett Storm. They've done quite a bit of racing in Australia in the last 12 months to spread their wings. And very shortly, we'll get the green flag waved and we'll be back in business for Q2.
Just interesting looking at the front of the BMW, the little turning vanes that have been attached to the front bodywork. You know, it's the beginning of what we saw, 10 years ago with GT3. I wonder in 5 years' time when we come back to commentate on this event, David, will the GT4 car be pretty much approaching the lap times of what we're seeing in 2018, the GT3 cars? I probably think they're not going to be a million miles away.
You might be right. And could we have a GT5 or a GT6, which is for your really
well,
bog
we've got GT2.
That's right, that's coming back.
That's coming in
by
next
name. Yeah.
2019.
As Matt George, good to go in the Aston Martin. Very, very talented young British driver, Matt George, so he's going to be one to watch in this session, I would offer you. And as the...
that looks great, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
Wouldn't it be a laugh of just when we flick the light switch off, just to see what the reaction would be in the pit lane?
Pandemonium. You can tell how powerful those lights are because it doesn't look that dark looking at the pit straight.
Actually, it's lighter now than it was an hour ago with the natural light.
You're right. But the GT4 International Cup has been a very popular addition to the GT4 calendar, and I think more teams will come back next year.
It's accessible.
Yeah.
Accessible both in terms of the product that's on the market and also accessible at the price structure.
And of course, for lots of wealthy Bahrainis who love their fast cars, they can go out and buy one of these. And
I think most of them are being tested around our hotel last night.
That's right.
I don't know. Well, it must have been a Lamborghini of some sort hitting the rev limiter. Anyway.
But they like their cars out here.
Oh, they love them, absolutely.
Whether it's racing or, as you see from the drag strip, the drag racing elements of the sport, or even drifting, which has got a big presence here. There's a kart track at the Bahrain International Circuit. I suppose it's one of the places that pioneered that use of the word facility. It's not a track, it is a facility. You can do so many things here.
I mean, you drive, I drove for the first time yesterday into the circuit, and it's visually striking, and you can see it from miles away.
Now, as we get ready for Q2, let's quickly nip to the pit lane. Bruce Jones has caught up with the drivers of the Phoenix Racing Audi number 5 to talk about qualifying.
Milan Doncha, you've got a smile on your face. In fact, Phoenix Racing should have a smile first and third after the first qualifying session, so it's looking good for the Audi camp.
Yeah, for now it was, we had a really good qualifying. I think I just needed 2 laps, really pushed to limits and had just one perfect lap, and that's why I had such a gap, and I think the competitors weren't ready yet, or were sleeping. I don't know what it was, but I'm really happy, and the team is happy, of course. We have a great car.
Maybe it's because you're the European champion, along with your teammate Nikolai Molomat, and does give you one step forward.
It does, of course. Everybody's looking at you because you're a European champion, and but yeah, we want to be world champion as well, of course. So this is a great challenge, and yeah, pole is a good start.
Your first visit here?
Yeah, first time. What do you think of it? I kind of like Bahrain.
So best of luck. Thanks, Milan.
So Milan Doncha done his bit and goes to join his fellow European Silver Cup champion Nikolai Molomadsen. Very focused on the job in hand, Nikolai Molomadsen. Very quick driver and has carved a really good niche for himself in GT4 this season. He has had the odd outing in GT3 at the Dane. Came out of the Audi Sport TT Cup, runner-up with a win in 2015, for example. Very much at home in a GT4 Audi, and this is just an extension, a natural extension of what he's done all season. Yeah,
and it's a strong lineup. I mean, looking at that lap time that was done by Milan Doncha, you have to think that you're going to see a very, very strong for Nikolai Molomadsen. Get my mouth and tongue around that. So that's got to be a favourite at the minute for Audi and Phoenix Racing to secure that pole position.
So everyone pulls their way out onto the circuit now. An element of weaving to try and generate the warmth in the Pirelli tyres on which everybody runs. There then, Matt George, number 44, Aston Martin. He's raced in both Britain and France this year within GT4. And the Aston Martin up towards turns 5 and 6, threading its way down through this long S. And again, for many of these drivers, first time they've been here, so every lap is critical because it's adding to their knowledge of the circuit.
Yeah, I mean, it's a major circuit. It's a long circuit, 3.3 miles rounded, 5.4 kilometres, and it's a technical circuit, the middle sector of the circuit, certainly in the exit of 4, which is the end of part of sector 1, all the way down into turn 8. Easy to get it all around. Coming here up through 9 into 10, another part of the racetrack, one of the maybe more difficult parts. Finding your braking zone, not being aggressive on the brake pedal when you do hit it, not to get the car unstable because you're turning and braking and there's a slight off camber at the same time. Then this sort of back straight which leads into turn 11, one of those long corners, it is actually much tighter when you stand and look at it than you see it again on screen. It opens up as you go through the corner, but then you've got to get the car back into position to make sure you make your apex into 12, which is maybe in some respects the quickest corner on the racetrack, but one that demands from the driver in the car commitment.
Nicky Leutwiler, the 58-year-old Swiss driver in the Porsche. You can trace his career all the way back to the late 1980s when he started off in Carrera Cup. He had a spell racing in America, and Nicky Leutwiler has had a good year, again winning his class within the GT4 European series. His McLaren is up towards the timing line, then comes Matt George, and will start a flying lap in a moment. And I suspect actually will not start a flying lap. This doesn't give the suggestion that it's going to be very rapid at all, because he's still warming up his tyres, as also is Leutwiler behind him. So,
but what a contrast to the GT3 cars, that they had enough tyre left to complete the flying lap and not suffer any degradation.
It'll be interesting tomorrow to see how these cars fare, because of course they're going to be racing in the morning first up, so it'll be a pretty warm adventure for them. They're going to get probably cumulatively the hottest of the conditions come race day, aren't they?
Oh yeah, they will do. But it is interesting that everybody's being, I'd say, cautious and circumspect on this opening lap, 15 or 16 minutes and a little bit seconds remaining, but nobody looks like they're going for a serious run on whether they're on fresh tyres or whether they're on the set that was originally on the car for the first part of qualifying. I suspect they are the original set of tyres.
Brett Strom you're riding with. Third gear for that corner surprises me. I would have thought it would be a lower gear, but maybe if you're trying, you wouldn't drop lower.
I'm assuming that at the pace he's running at, which doesn't look to me like it's a qualifying lap pace, there's so much torque with the BMW that you don't really need to use the lower gear, but if not for any other reason, to assist with the car braking.
He's lifted way
he's
before
cruising.
turn
It's
10.
just lifting cruise.
Yeah.
He's down to third gear, which would be the natural gear I would have thought that turn 11 would be. But just, he's just driving around, but not sufficiently quick to put too much load or heat into the tyre. And then coming into this, probably maybe the most enjoyable corner on the circuit, turn 13, because you've got to get the nose in, but if you get it in, then you've got that lovely exit to drive the car hard out of. It's just, everybody's just cruising around.
Sailing on the underside. Picks up the pace, locked into the queue. Now there is number 5. That's Nikolai Moller-Madsen then. Turning his way up towards the timing line. We can't give you times at the moment, I'm afraid. The timing system has had a small meltdown in the heat. But we know that Moller-Madsen is going to be quick as he goes through. And look at that, 5 minutes of the session gone, and only now are people starting to really up the pace and think about a flying lap. Andrew Danilov just come out of the pit lane in the red Porsche Cayman up the road ahead. There it is.
Well, it just happens to be in the wrong part of the racetrack and manages to get out of the way of the Audi as it clambers over the curb, trying to get out of the way of the Porsche. And maybe you're seeing a little bit maybe of the inexperience in some of the drivers, that when they come onto the track they have to be aware that there are other drivers out there and flying laps. So it is their responsibility in that respect to not impede that particular car. In this case it's the number 5 Audi, the car that has been pretty much the dominant car in qualifying so far. Well, runs a bit wide out of turns 8, 7, down into 8.
And they've had a really impressive season within the European Championship as well, because they won at Zolderrad, then they won again at Brands Hatch. They scored victories towards the end of the season at Spa, so no wonder they were champions, because even if they weren't winning, they were banking the points. Moller Madsen and Milan they made a good combination together, and that should prevail here as well, you would have thought.
They look tiny. I mean, just comparing that to a GT3 car, absolutely, they look absolutely tiny. And that's, if you go to the showroom, that's physically quite a large car.
You see one on the road and you go, wow. But you look at it, having seen a bewinged GT3 car, and it looks, like you say, it looks puny, looks tiny. It doesn't look to have that wow factor at all, but it is.
It needs to get a few cans of spinach, doesn't it?
Yeah. Flex its muscles a bit.
Look at the glow of those two tailpipes. The V10 engine hammering out. I mean, it's what, 400 odd plus horsepower in this configuration.
It's a decent bit of kit. So there is then Nikolai Moller Madsen. Apologies, we don't have laps or sector times, but we see Moller Madsen getting a little bit crossed up the curve he went. Comes now over the timing line and will try to improve from second. Does not. 2:12.082.
But Gregory Gilbert has done a 2:11.7. That's the quickest time we've seen in GT4 qualifying so far this evening. And Gregory Gilbert, remember.
Enzo Guibert is third, Nicky Leutwiler is fourth, Dan Wells fifth, Max Hesser sixth, but having his lap time cancelled for track limits. Seventh, Matt Nicol-Jones, eighth, the experienced Antoine Leclerc, ninth is Thomas Drouet, and Andy Merrick is 10th, as there is number 250, Brett Strom, the American, down at turn 1 now.
Slightly disappointed, maybe I'm wrong, that the CMR, the little Alpine, is down only in 8th place, having been pretty much the dominant car in the free practice sessions that they had both yesterday and this morning.
But he's not yet done a time, he's only just gone out. So
car 3 times cancelled for track limits.
Yeah, that was Max Hesser I was mentioning a moment ago, so he's going to drop from that 6th. There's your order. Santalok junior team top the times from Phoenix, from 3 wide from the Porsche Centre car of Nicky Leutwiler. Over the timing line goes number 42 once more, Greg Gilbert, and that was a 2:11.767. He was slower by 55,000 compared to his earlier best.
Keep an eye on Stephen Palette, Santalok junior team. Car 41 has just gone purple in Sector 1. That's fastest overall in Sector 1. If you look at the 88, and that's Thomas Drouet in the Mercedes ASP. So good time again from Palette, Sector 2, personal best, but probably his first flying lap of any consequence.
Through goes Drouet, who shares with the boss, Jerome Policon, and that was a 2:13, a bit slower than what he had done earlier. Yeah, Palette's one to watch. So is Reinhard Koffler. He was a real gun in Formula Renault going back quite a few years. Matt George 14th. Piotr Kodzin is 13th. Andy Merrick, 10th at the moment.
Koffler goes up to 11th.
Yeah.
I love these names. Razzoon, more than racing.
Yes.
So where is Palette? That's the one we need to keep an eye on. Number 41, Santalok junior team.
He was down in the last sector, so he's gone 16th.
Well, that's a disappointment.
Yeah.
It is a disappointment. Was that traffic, or was that just... there is number 5, which currently in second place.
It's Moller Madsen. There is 41, Stephen Palette. Andrew Danilev has gone 14th in the red Porsche Cayman. So, yeah, something unravelled for Palette in the last sector. Now, there is the number 41 Audi pressing on, and this car, Stephen Palette at the wheel of it, threading his way through traffic. That could be his undoing if he gets caught up in it, like he seemed to do in the last sector.
Yeah, he's probably been given a bit of a free pass by one of the back markers letting him through. You can see the pace coming down the hill through turn 7. Gets into turn 8. Bits of the national flag of whatever it is beginning to blow off.
That's right, yes.
Whatever the wrap. Oh, now that's a track limit abuse if I ever saw one.
Way wide into 9.
That's not far off it either.
So all 4 wheels off, to then tighten the line and go off the road on the other side of the corner. Interesting.
Sorry, Steve, but we just mention.
There's the KTM of Reinhard Koffler going through, but he loses out on track to Stephen Palette. Again, great variety you get in GT4 these days.
Well, I think that's what makes it a very attractive formula, because there are so many more options available, because they're very much production-based road cars. And there in KTM, first time we've seen it, was it Crossbow or KTM? It's KTM.
KTM Crossbow, yeah.
I mean, again, a sort of a boutique style GT4 car. Light, very nimble. Ford Cosworth turbocharged, or Ford 2.3 turbocharged motor in that.
KTM, you really associate more with motorbikes, but as a brand, it has long been associated with GT4. Go back to the initial Crossbow, the open top car.
You can see the turbo, look at the old snail on the right hand side glowing absolutely. You wouldn't want to be 100 feet of that.
Koffler comes through. Stephen Palat goes quickest on a 2:11.191. Gets himself half a second up on his teammate Greg Gilbert. It's been a great afternoon for Audi, hasn't it? Because it's a 1-2-3 at the moment for Audi in this.
Well, Palat needed that clear lap. He got delayed. And he had the almost a tank snapper from the little KTM. Dropped the wheel off coming out of turn 1. Didn't need to be that far over on the left hand side, because the quick way is to be neat and tidy through 1 to get us lined up for turn 2.
Now, Pierre-Alexandre Jean, incidentally, in the number 36 Alpine, still yet to do a time and still not looking all that racy in some of the sectors. This is Koffler's little error.
Way. Missed the apex by God knows how much, and then just tried to drive through it and pushed himself wider and wider and wider off the track.
Right, into the pit lane is the yellow Audi of Max Hesse, and in the background, look, the green and white colours of Nikolai Moller-Madsen's car. Nikolai's done, gets out of the car. McLaren 11, now that should be Lisette Brahms now. And
I would love to see the little Alpine. Shouldn't be partisan, but one brand over another. But when the Porsche came and goes way wide coming out of turn 7, that was probably again getting it all sideways and couldn't get it recovered.
That's Andrew Danilov, the Canadian. If we put in the Maserati for this session, it's Piotr Hodson, dropped down to 18th. But he's staying with Lisette Brahms for the moment. And a replay of the Porsche having a little moment.
Not ideal for this set of tyres. Luckily, might get away without a very deep, flat spot, particularly in that left rear.
So away blasts Andrew Danilov in that carmine red liveried Porsche, and he's straight back on the money, isn't he? He's pressing on behind Brett Strong there to try and redeem himself, get a better lap time out of that car. There, going through is the Bullet Racing Mercedes, Andy Merrick. Where is he in the times? He's dropped back into 12th now, and 250, which is the BMW of Brett Strom, improved last time, 2 minutes 14.810 to go 16th fastest. Right, you're on board with Strom now, down towards turn 14 rather.
Third gear, yes. Second, don't believe it.
Quickly snatches third, doesn't he?
Yeah, I would, I often prefer to use slightly higher gear and let the car pull through the corner than the shorter gear and have it revving, and potentially got the downside of breaking traction.
So 5.5 minutes are on the clock.
Little Alpine up to 5th place, number 26.
Alexandre Jean, in the meantime, still slowest in his car, not having a good day at all. So maybe there's still a legacy of dramas from that earlier session. Brett Strom, you're riding with him now, goes up towards turn 4.
And turn 4 uses third gear, where in turn 14, which I would have thought was the slightly quicker of the two apexes, uses second gear. What do I know?
We'll have to fuck
now, second gear here for sure.
Yeah.
Good old-fashioned straight 6 growl. Ooh.
And he knows he made a little error there.
Well, he broke traction pretty quickly and easily, and comes up and past there. Mercedes. Watch into turn 11. At least you can get the BM to turn in. He gets the nose nicely placed. And then into 13, let's have a look and see again. Makes the apex, gets the car pretty much. So Stephen Palat, I think, is pretty much as day he's done is half a second plus of an advantage over Gregory Gilbert in the sister car. Where is the little Alpine? Still in 5th place, not indicating that it's going to be. The second sector time is not bad looking, but not a personal best, certainly not a fastest overall.
Brett Strom through again. 15th, that car is not an improvement last time, only 4/10 down. He's going to get 2 more laps out of the session if he so desires. I think the other Alpine has stopped on the circuit, you know, because...
Well, it's not done, it's done 5 laps. But
no,
oh, sorry, okay.
So it's only done 1 lap out of the pit and then 1 sector time, so it's got to have stopped out on the circuit.
Well, we saw it in the pit lane with that right rear, and then the bodywork was being replaced. Yeah, we saw it went back out on track and looked fine, but it's gone back into the pit lane.
But Pierre-Alexandre Jean, as I say, is missing somewhere, and it's in the middle sector of the lap. So problems persist for the Alpine. 72, the Just Racing Mercedes. This is Eric Behrens, the Swedish driver, currently to be found 17th.
Mercedes is so, to say it, typical of the way the Mercedes goes about, or AMG, their performance division, goes about producing turnkey race cars.
Yeah.
Just literally, you turn up, you get your set of keys, and you can take it straight to the racetrack.
The best lap time of car 88, Thomas Drew.
So, well, I didn't see the bollard. Maybe that's why, because it hit it.
He demolished it.
Yeah,
yes,
indeed.
Yes. But the race director, as we mentioned at the start of Q1, clamping down on driving standards and track limit abuse.
Very welcome indeed.
Whoa! Speaking of which,
whoa.
Off the road and back on again. There goes Eric Behrens.
Yeah, that was well and truly off the track. And again, not much better on the exit of 13.
No.
Maybe he knows something about the racetrack we all need to observe, but certainly running that wide does nothing to your lap time and doesn't do your tyres particularly much good either.
Behrens on pit, but he's going to try and brave it out for 1 more lap. The flag will be out within now 50 seconds anyway.
Yeah, they only got number 15 BMW. Oh, sorry, they're under 250 BMW in 15th place. Makes us down into the pit lane. The McLaren still pounding around.
19th.
That's a long way away.
Yeah.
That's surprising.
Lisette Brahms at the wheel of it. We've got Am, Pro-Am and Silver Cup, incidentally, as well as the overall situation to look at, but you've got the different classes to concentrate on as well. Lisette Brahms with husband Luc. It's their son Max who's looking after the GT4 International Cup, as he also runs the European Series.
Strange thing, the Maserati, the GT version of what was, it was this cut-down version of the Quattro Porte.
The Scuderia Velova Corsa car, which has been in the Central European Cup this year, the 2 Polish drivers at the helm. Welcome variety, but it's a quick car in the right hands.
It's nice to have a Maserati racing.
Absolutely, totally agree.
Fantastic company in its heyday, particularly in those middle and to late 50s.
Best lap time of car 44 now being deleted. That's Matt George, who hit the bollard at turn 7 through the S's, in other words. And Eric Behrens there getting out of the way of the McLaren. So not many cars are still circulating, but Stephen Paulette, who has done the best time, has done a great job, and half a second quicker than the rest. Stephen is with Bruce Jones.
Stephen Paulette, great job there, but real competition, even with your teammate for Santalot Racing, first and second.
Yeah, I'm really happy for the team. Greg make a good lap too. I'm happy because it's the first meeting for Mika Blanchemin and me, and we are at the top for the beginning. It's pretty cool. Now it's just appetizer. We have the race tomorrow, and we will work this night to find the good compromise for the 1 hour of race. But I'm really happy, and thanks to the Santalot team.
And it's pretty cool to be racing out here at Bahrain.
Yeah, first time to the Emirates. Yeah, it's pretty cool. And the light, it's very amazing. It's better than in sunny weather. It's very particular, but I like it. It's cool.
Excellent. Well done. Thank you, Steve.
This type of racing and indeed to this circuit. But Stephen Palette then for the Santilok team, taking provisional pole position.
Yeah, pretty dominant by the 0.56 of a second ahead of the second place car. So that's...
Might need some sticky tape over his Porsche overalls before he gets on the podium, perhaps tomorrow as an Audi driver, but hey. So let's have a look at the highlights then of GT4 International Cup qualifying here in Bahrain. This 21 strong field, one of which BMW Julien Piquet and Ricardo van der Ende missing qualifying because of a broken engine. That's being changed, but it will start at the back of the grid for the 2 races tomorrow. Peter Larson was one of the drivers having early incidents, got all crossed up with the Ginetta, and after a puncture, Pierre Sonsenena's Alpine headed into the pit lane where the team looked at the damage, trying to get him back out on the track. The sister car, though, was absolutely flying, launching itself over the curbs, and as the pit stop cycled through and we got ready for Q2, it was Matt George that qualified fastest in Q1. So could Moller Madsen go top? Yes, he could initially, but then Greg Gilbert and then Stephen Palette got ahead of him in the end of 1-2 for the Santilok junior team. Stephen Palette ahead of Greg Gilbert, Nikolai Moller Madsen third, and Reinhard Koffler's KTM was also getting on with the job. That would be 13th. The spinning Porsche of Andrew Danielou, 16th by the end of the session of Brett Strom's BMW. 15th, running very wide, Eric Behrens with his Just Racing Mercedes AMG GT4. And also trying ever so hard, Stephen Palette, despite the fact stickers were peeling off the roof, nothing seemed to slow him down. He was determined to try to get himself at the very top, and it was mission accomplished. The French driver coming through as the checkered flag was waved to round out qualifying in the GT4 International Cup. 2 qualifying races and a main race to look forward to tomorrow for the GT4 cars. So, with mandatory pit stops, of course, as well. 2 qualifying races to look forward to assemble the grid for the main race, and in both sessions you've got quick cars out of sequence starting further back, either because of problems or by not even being able to take part in qualifying at all. So there'll be battles, I suspect, at the front and the rear of the field to look forward to. And although they've qualified under the floodlights, they've qualified in the cool and the dark, they will race tomorrow pretty much in the hottest of the temperatures, because they will race early morning, round about lunchtime, and then mid-afternoon. So very different indeed for the drivers tomorrow. For now, though, that's the GT4 International Cup activity for the day completed here at the Bahrain International Circuit. Join us tomorrow when we get ready to go racing. For now, from John Watson and David Addison, bye-bye.